Welcome back in Geological Knowledge. So in the previous videos we have discussed about the joints classification, folds classification, and as well as we have talked 3 or 4 or 5 videos about the joints, about their basic terminologies, their classification, and how they are occurring in a structures in a field or their origin. So now we will move over to the economic geology, and the questions from the economic geology are generally asked generally from the processes of ore deposits and as well the classification or the occurrence of the deposits in Indian subcontinent. Okay, so let's start our discussion. So today's discussion is based on the origin of the ore deposits, means how they are originating, what are the different processes behind their origination, and in what type of form or in what type of tectonic settings they are originating. Okay, so first question is there: what is the mineral which contain a metallic element which can be economically exploited, called as? So this is very basic definition, and if you understand the basic terminologies, then it's very important, or it's very easier for you to answer this question. So the mineral which contain a metallic element which can be economically exploited, so that is known as ore mineral. Okay, so we all know that is a mineral which from which one or more metals can be extracted at a profit. Means from mineral, if we can extract one or more metals, that can be extracted at a profit, that is known as ore mineral. Okay, and we can take several examples like bauxite, hematite, galena. Okay, so the ores may be high grade or low grade depending upon the percentage of the metal percentage in it. Okay, metal percentage present in it. Okay, so the amount of metal present in it, that is dependent upon several factors. Okay, so the same is here written here: ore mineral is defined as a mineral which contains a metallic element in a quantity that can be exploited and extracted for use at an economical cost. Okay, so that is option A, ore mineral. Second one is the definition of ore is dependent upon. As we have discussed previously, and the same question here, the definition of ore is dependent upon. Means what are the factors which define an ore? Quantity, size, color, as well as quality. So as far as size is concerned, that doesn't affect the ore properties. Okay, and as well as the remaining three, that is the quantity, color, and quality, they are the defining factor. So natural concentration of an ore mineral in a massive rock body is defined as an ore deposit. Okay, hence the definition of an ore deposit is also size dependent. Okay, the definition of ore is dependent upon quality, quantity, size, color, quality. So that is option B. Third one is the non-metallic mineral associated with ore minerals are called as. The non-metallic minerals which are associated with ore minerals, they are known as non-metallic minerals, metallic minerals, gangue minerals, or the flux minerals. So we all know that is the non-metallic minerals, they are known as gangue minerals. So a few non-metallic minerals are often found in association with an ore mineral. So these have been separated from the ore before the same in processed for the extraction of the metal, and these associated minerals, they are generally called as gangue minerals. Or we can say that these are the useless minerals which occur in association with the ore. So these are known as gangue minerals, and these are commonly discarded in the process of treatment of the ore. So the common gangue minerals, if we talk about, so they are quartz, calcite, barytes, fluorspar and feldspar or tourmaline. So these kinds of minerals, they are gangue minerals, means these are not of economic value. Okay, so here option C is the right answer. Fourth one is, how many types of rocks are there on the basis of the time of formation? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the rocks, they have been classified on the basis of the formation, time formation, means at which time frame they have been formed. So on the basis of their time or the formation of relative to the host rock, the ore deposits are divided into two groups, that is synergetic and the epigenetic. Okay, so if we talk about the synergetic ore deposits, so these ore deposits, they are formed at the same time as the enclosing rock. So when the rock was forming, so at the same time the deposit was also forming. Okay, so these are known as synergetic deposits. And if we talk about the example, so sedimentary ore deposits, they are the famous examples of synergetic ore deposits, because the formation of sedimentary rocks, that is closely associated with the formation of ore deposits. And if we talk about the epigenetic deposits, ore deposits, so these are formed at the later than the enclosing rock. Okay, and the best examples are hydrothermal ore deposits, they are the example of epigenetic deposits. Okay, so here option is 2, that is epigenetic and synergetic deposit. Next one is, the deposits that have formed simultaneously with the enclosing rocks are known as synergetic, epigenetic, uh, syngenetic, or the uh, synchlogenetic. So we have discussed previously in the previous slide, that is the deposits that are formed simultaneously at the enclosing rock. So these are known as synergetic deposits. Okay, and these are either of sedimentary origin of the or the igneous origin, means when the solidification of the magma was taking place, so if at that time the ore deposits are formed, so these will be known as igneous origin, and thus during the process of sedimentary rocks, if they have formed, so these will be known as sedimentary types of ores. Okay, so here option A is the right answer. Deposits that were formed subsequently to the formation of the host rock, so they are known as synergetic, uh, syncogenetic, epigenetic, or the synclogenetic. So we know that is these are known as epigenetic, means those deposits, they were formed subsequent to the formation of the host rock. So epigenetic deposits of igneous, sedimentary as well as metamorphic types are known. Okay, so the basic principle is that they may be formed with the process, they may be formed at the formation of the rock, or they may be formed after the deposition of the rock. Okay, after the formation of rock they can also be formed. Okay, so both the process are there, but the concept being there, if they are formed at the same time, if the ore deposits they have formed at the same time during the enclosing rock, so at that those deposits will be synergetic, and if they have formed after the deposition of rock, after the crystallization of rock, so then they will be known as epigenetic ore deposits. Next one is, the deposits occurring close to the roofs of magmatic masses, what are they known as? Magmatic deposits, pegmatitic deposits, hydrothermal deposits, or the metasomatic deposits. Okay, so we all know that is the late residual process, which is left in the late last stage of the crystallization, that commonly contain some minerals like silica, alkalines, water, carbon dioxide, and some concentration of the rare elements and some metals. So pegmatites are formed when this residual magma gets injected into the enclosing rock. Okay, so many such pegmatites form valuable ore mineral deposits. The economic minerals of some utmost importance, they commonly occur in pegmatites. These are mica, corundum, gemstone, and feldspars. Okay, and deposits of some rare earth, the tantalum, niobium, tin, tungsten, molybdenum, and uranium, they have also found in some pegmatites. And pegmatites of economic importance, they are mostly found in association with felsic igneous rocks, though it's not very essential that they will form only with the felsic igneous rocks, but generally they are associated with the felsic igneous rocks. And for example, quartz dioritic rocks. Okay, so the same is here written here in the option explanation. So pegmatites deposits are sometimes classified as a distinct group of magmatic deposits which are formed towards the later stages of crystallization or at the end stage of the crystallization, and such necessary occurring close to the roofs of the magmatic masses because they occur at the last stage of the crystallization process. So that is why they are known as pegmatite deposits. So option B is the right answer. Which of the following is not essential condition for hydrothermal deposits? Means what are the processes, what are the key factors for the formation of hydrothermal deposits? The highly active fluids, highly enriched fluids, highly inactive fluids, or the suitable pathways. So the following not essential condition. So there are three essential conditions for the formation of hydrothermal deposits. Okay. Firstly, we will understand that is what are the hydrothermal deposits. So they are of epigenetic origin, means after the formation of the rock. Okay, so this is the first key, and they are the epigenetic ore deposits which are formed by the hydrothermal solution. That is why they are known as hydrothermal ore deposits. And some famous hydrothermal deposits processes, if we talk about, so these are gold, silver, copper, lead, zinc, and mercury sometimes. Okay, so if we talk about the fundamental factors or the three important parameters or factors or the conditions for the formation of hydrothermal ore deposits, so these are, there must be highly active and enriched fluids, suitable pathways for their migration through the rocks. If there is not suitable pathways for their migration, so there will be a hindrance for the upward movement. So they will not be formed as a rock or the minerals. Okay, and suitable physico-chemical environment for their deposits to take place, means their pressure, temperature, as well as some other factors. Okay, so these are also some physico-chemical environments. They are also required for the formation of hydrothermal deposits. But if we talk about the highly inactive fluids, that is option C, so that is not required for the formation of hydrothermal deposits. So here option C is the right answer. Ninth one is type of veins which are bodies of tabular shape in pre-existing fissures. They are known as fissure veins, ladder veins, or the gas veins, or the stock works. So these are known as fissure veins. Okay, and these fissure veins, what are fissure veins? Firstly, we will understand that how we can define and how can we understand the meaning of fissure veins. So these are fissure filled, means in the veins. Okay, a fissure filled with ore, that is known as fissure veins. So it's a tabular or ore body which occupies one or more fissures within a rock. And fissure vein deposits are the most important of all the cavity filling deposits. Okay, if you have studied in UG classes about the cavity filling deposits, so in all of the cavity filling deposits, there are several types of cavity filling deposits like fissure shear veins, shear zone deposits, stockwork, saddle reefs, ladder veins, or the cavity deposits, and gas veins sometimes. And the fissure veins deposits, they are the most important of all the cavity filling deposits. Okay, so they are the chief sources of the formation of metals like gold, silver, copper, lead, zinc, and mercury sometimes. So fissure veins, they may be defined as mineral bodies of elongated or tabular shape deposits in pre-existing fissures. So the original fissures, they may be parallel or at intersecting, radial or fan shaped. Okay, so what can be their shape? They may be parallel or the intersecting, radial or fan shape in pattern, and that is also the shape of the resulting bodies. Okay, so the type of veins which are bodies of tabular shapes in pre-existing fissures, these are known as fissure veins. So option A is the right answer. Next one is the type of vein commonly found in igneous rock. So which type of vein that is generally found in the igneous rocks? Fissure veins, ladder veins, gas veins, or the stockworks? So that is ladder veins. Okay, so ladder veins, what are these veins? So these veins are commonly found in the dikes. So these are short, transverse, roughly parallel fractures that are filled with the ore masses. So because they appear like a ladder, so that's why we call them as ladder deposits, ladder veins. Okay, and the same is written here in the explanation. The ladder veins are commonly found in igneous rocks such as dikes and similar bodies, and consist of transverse, roughly regularly shaped fractures, and are filled with deposits of economic importance. Okay, so that's why they are known as ladder veins. So the type of vein commonly found in igneous rocks, that is ladder veins. Option B is the right answer. Next one is the gas veins are generally found in. Gas veins, where they are found? The silicate minerals, feldspar minerals, metallic minerals, or the carbonate minerals. So gas veins, they are narrow, sloping, and thick bodies deposits of mineral deposited in solution fissures or cracks of the host rock, which is generally a carbonate rock like a limestone. Okay, so here option D, that is carbonate minerals, that is the right answer. Okay, next one is when gravity is the agent of placing of the deposits are called as the diluvial deposits, aeolian deposits, alluvial deposits, or the beach placers. So diluvial placers is the term used when gravity is the agency involved in the process of placer deposits. So such placer would be found along the foothills and the talus slopes. Okay, as we have, if you would have studied, that is the types of, there are several types of placer deposits. So they are the alluvial placers, stream placers, beach placers, and aeolian placers. So the diluvial types of deposits or diluvial placers, these are the term where the gravity is the agency involved in the process of formation of placer deposits. And we all know that is placer deposits, they are formed because of the mechanical concentration. So the natural separation of heavy minerals from the light ones by means of the moving water, air, or gravity, these are known as mechanical concentration process. And the mineral deposits which are formed by this process, these are known as placer deposits. Okay, so here option A is the right answer. Next one is the term used for the rock hydrothermal deposits that occur of exceptionally small size but in good numbers. What are they known as? So the key terms are here, that they occur in exceptionally small size but in good numbers. So what are these known as? Ladder veins, fissure veins, gas veins, or the stockworks. So we all know that is, these are known as stockworks. So stockwork is a mass of rock that has been traversed by a network of small ore bearing veins. So okay, they are the mass of rocks which has been traversed by a network of small ore bearing veins. So each vein is about 1 centimeter in width and sometimes few meters in length. Okay, the spacing between the adjacent veins that varies from place to place. Okay, sometimes it can be, at some place it can be few centimeters to few meters. And in stockworks the whole rock mass in is mined. Okay, so stockworks are formed when the hydrothermal solution percolates to the vertical zones of intense shattering which occur in certain igneous intrusions. So how they are formed? Stockworks, they are formed when the hydrothermal solution that percolates through the vertical zones of intense shattering, okay, which occur generally in the form of igneous intrusions. Okay, and the same is given here. The term stockwork is used for the hydrothermal deposits that occur in vein or the fissures of exceptionally small size but in good number within a limited space, which are traversed by the body of the rock profusely. Okay, so these are known as stockworks. So here the option D is the right answer. Next one is the magmatic ore deposits don't commonly occur in form of injective. The magmatic ore deposits do not commonly occur in form of injective. So whether this statement is true or false. So the magmatic ore deposits, they commonly occur in the following forms. Okay, there are few forms in which they occur. So they can be either early magmatic deposits or the late magmatic deposits. And in case of early magmatic deposits, they can be dissemination deposits, the segregation deposits, okay, or the residual liquid injection, like residual liquid segregation, immiscible liquid segregation, or the immiscible liquid injection. So these are the processes. The magmatic ore deposits, they can be classified in two types mainly, but there are subtypes also. Okay, so here option B, that is the given statement is false, that magmatic ore deposits do not commonly occur in the form of injective. Okay, that's why they occur in the injection. Okay, so this was our discussion about the some processes of ore deposits, that how they are forming in structures or in the field. Okay, and the next video we will talk about some Indian examples of ore deposits, that how they are occurring, where they are occurring, and what are their some properties, basic properties. Okay, thank you.